remember the first film. I looked at what we could do with green screen and digital and Frank's book, and I thought, okay, maybe we won't go as far as the book because it might just be too bizarre for audiences. We went did about like a half step between the graphic novel and a movie, and people really loved the feel of it. Thought it was very original and great treatment of it. So this time we went ahead and pushed it further towards the book, especially Dame to Kill for. It's more abstract in his drawings, in his graphic approach to it. It's just eye popping. So we thought, if they like that, let's go all the way. So when people say, how did you update the look? It wasn't really to make it different from the first one, but actually closer to the source material than before. And then doing it in 3D, because I just thought that would lend so much better to a graphic novel because of an absence of information. You know, a lot of 3D movies have so much on the screen, you almost don't know where to look. But because his style is so stripped down, and there's so much black, and then there's the actor, and then a few set pieces, and maybe snow, everything would pop a lot more if you did it in 3D and really make you feel like you were in his graphic novel in Sin City.
Yeah, we really wanted to do use of 3D, which Robert pushed. At first, I resisted, and his point was, we don't have aliens coming out of every closet and spaceships filling the air and dinosaurs coming out of nowhere all the time. We've got your stuff, which is pretty simple, and where the focus can be used in 3D, and so I became convinced, as I usually am, by this guy.
Frank, for you, there's so many things, signature works that you have on the bookshelf. I mean, 300, Dark Knight Returns. I mean, the list goes on and on. Year One, Batman Year One. Where does Sin City fit in among your babies? I mean, this is the one that was like the purest distillation of what you really wanted to do. In a way.
Well, yeah, when I first decided I wanted to do comic books, I was all of 6 years old, and I decided I would do them for the rest of my life. And you know what happened was I grew up on Superboy comics and then Spider-Man and that sort of thing. After a while, they started to seem kind of juvenile to me, and I lost interest. But I kept drawing. But meanwhile, what I was reading were things like Mickey Spillane and Raymond Chandler, and so when the two loves merged into doing crime comics, which I thought was just an absolute natural, and would go over big. Moved to New York, was told, go back home. We don't need you. Go pump gas. You know, you're from Vermont. You know, we got no use for you. You're not drawing guys in tights. So I had to learn how to draw guys in tights, and I put them in as many crime situations as I could. And then after working in comics and gaining some notoriety, and then working in Hollywood, I sat down and I decided I would just please myself, and I would do the one comic book that could not possibly be turned into a movie, and it ended up being Sin City. Then this guy shows up.
Jessica, for you to go back to Nancy it's a great experience, I'm sure. In the story, it lets you find her in very new places and very different sort of confrontations this time.
Yeah, I mean, in the first film, she starts off as a little girl, and she's a victim. She was kidnapped, and then later she was tortured, and she gets saved by Bruce Willis's character Hartigan. But then in this one, it picks up after he kills himself. So it's like the love of her life is gone. She's devastated. She's an alcoholic. She's still dancing. She's not happy about it.
Not hardly.
Well, you know, she has costumes now.
Yeah.
Different costumes. But it was cool to be able to take someone, you know, from this like sweet, innocent, naive victim to this very powerful warrior who takes her life in her own hands and you know, gets revenge.
Well, I've got to add that the original working title for Jessica's story was Nancy's Last Dance, because she had been the abused victim. She'd been through the ringer, and she had ended up, as many women in her situation do, which is an exotic dancer. And this time, she's turns into something quite else. And I've already got her next chapter planned, so please show up for the second movie.
Josh, for you, what to step foot into this city that Frank has created? There's an anachronistic quality to it. The dialogue it's not naturalistic, and there's such extremes. Talk a little bit about the challenge and the opportunity of that.
Well, I mean, as an actor, I think doing it for 30 years, every movie you're trying to figure out a way to make it more naturalistic and more organic to, you know, just humanity. And you have lines like "never let the monster out" and stuff like that. It's hard, you know. You have to find a cadence, and the cadence doesn't come to you. I was saying this earlier when we were in Comic-Con, that it's the kind of movie that you really have to dive into. You can't really manipulate the movie. You can't manipulate Frank Miller's mind. It's impossible. Look at him.
Many have tried.
Many have tried. So the opportunity to be able to do it was really unnerving. But when I watched it, it's one of the few movies that I've done where I thought, thank God I'm in this movie. I really feel proud to be in this movie. I think it's really, it's just next level. And everybody says that during press things. It's truly, I mean, I thought they've gone to the next place. I enjoyed it so much. It's very dark. It's a lot of fun. It's very sexy, you know. But yeah, it's one of those things that I would go and see a few times if I weren't in it. Because I'm in it, it would seem pretentious, so I don't.
3 times last night, a bit much. A little bit much. Eva, I haven't met you before, and I have to say that now I'm frightened and excited to meet you. It's a great performance. What for you coming in? What did you? Is there a scene that you may have circled in your mind as I can't wait to do that, or that one's going to be tricky?
I was very nervous for the scene when she's after she tried to shoot Dwight, and she's talking with the cops, and she's lying because she's a compulsive liar, as you have seen. So it's kind of the challenge in this film to still be believable and lie all the time, and so yeah, to play all these different women is that was the challenge, and she's so bad. So that was very kind of fun. You know, no conscience, no sense of right or wrong. She's pretty evil. Yeah.
Joseph, it's so nice to see you. How's things?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
It's been a while. It's good to see you. So your character, he has such a great arrival. You know, just coming into town. It's such a great introduction to the story. What was it on the page that you liked most about your character, and then was there any surprises along the way?
The thing that I liked on the page most about my character was in the very cover of the script, where it said Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez. I remember when the first one came out, going to the movie theater and saying to myself, I've never seen anything like this. I actually really loved acting in just the green environment, and just fully embracing an abandonment of, like Josh was saying, of realism, of reality, and say, no, we're going to the movies now. We're going into Sin City. We're going into a graphic novel. We're going into the mind of Frank Miller, and yeah, the sky isn't perfect detail. It's actually just pure black, and the snow is pure white. And that we're not in the real world. And that's, I mean, isn't that kind of what we're all looking for when we go to the movies, is going, you know, escaping our real world into something larger than that, simpler than that, more beautiful or darker. And this movie delivers that. And so just getting to become a part of that world and play a Rodriguez badass. I mean, I grew up, you know, watching, you know, his movies, loving his movies, and it was such a thrill to get to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's fantastic.
If you don't see the movie after that, there's something wrong with you.
Jessica and Robert, you've got this long relationship. Can you both talk a little bit about how things have changed and maybe stayed the same since Was it 2005 that you first worked
I
together?
met her she auditioned for me when she was 17. She was too young for this role of a movie I was doing, but I kept my eye on her because she was one of the few, Latin actresses I saw trying to break through, and encouraged her. I said, keep going, hope she's still. And then she got Dark Angel, and I knew her through my friendship with Jim, and we'd seen each other over the years and said, we have to work together someday. And when it came time for Sin City, I met with her. If you look at the Nancy in the book, it was a very difficult character to figure out because we were going so much trying to be one-to-one with what the book was. That was the character I just could not figure out. And but I knew I liked you and I wanted to work with you, so I went, you know what, you're just going to have to create a Nancy, because the one in the book it's kind of, I mean, if you see the book, you'll know what I mean. You created something that even inspired Frank to write this next story for you. That's why it wasn't even in a book. You created almost something new with it. Yeah, it's true.
And how did it change since then for the two of you working together?
Oh, I'm always trying to just work with Jessica. She's awesome. She's in my Machete movie. She's in my Spy Kid movie. I'm trying to put her in every franchise I have.
I do.
Because then there'll be multiple movies that we can
He
work
calls me
together.
up and he's like, so can you come shoot this little thing? And I'm like, okay, what is it? And he's like, well, it's just this little movie. Like, just come down. It'll be fun. Just a couple of days. I'll shoot you out. And that's just what he does. And I am there and I show up every time because it's so inspiring to be in his world and to be submerged in his universe.
Well, that's kind of why you use the same actors a lot. You get to know them and you realize one movie can't explore all the talent they have. You really have to give them several different kind of roles in completely different kind of movies to push them and to push yourself. And you trust that you know that they're going to step up because you're counting on them and you're giving them an opportunity to not just do the same thing again. And even in this, it's completely different than Sin City 1, what she does here. And she arrived with a lot of that. She arrived with so much of it worked out that it raised the bar. She was the first character we shot in Sin City 2, and it raised the bar on all the acting that was going to come after that.
My question's for the actors, and some of you have worked with Troublemaker before, but what was the experience like of going down to Austin, and how did that differ from what you've had on other films, shoots here or elsewhere?
Me, I loved it. I was so inspired by that particular aspect. Here's a filmmaker who has decided to kind of make his own world, his own industry, and do it his way. The fact that you drive just outside of Austin, and not only does he have all of the ability to shoot whatever he wants, all of the cutting is going on next door, and the visual effects, and the music, and everything else. And movies traditionally, because they're such mammoth tasks, they kind of have to get divided up, and that can sometimes be interruptive to one individual's voice coming through. But the way that Robert does it, it's so him. It's he manages to approach in the medium of filmmaking what an artist like Frank Miller is able to do by himself, sitting with just his own tools, writing and drawing. And I really admire that and found it enormously inspiring.
My favorite scene in the movie is with Doc Brown, Chris Lloyd. So my question is for Joe and Robert. For Joe, would you yourself trust Doc Brown to take bullets out of your body? And also for Robert, what's the decision casting Chris Lloyd in that particular specific role?
I'm going to start with Joseph, then I'll tell you more.
Well, that depends on if he has his flux capacitor handy. I love that scene too, man, and I love getting to see Christopher Lloyd do something dark, because I actually worked with Christopher Lloyd in a long time ago, 21 or 2 years ago. He's the angel in Angels in the Outfield, and so this was our reunion, and you couldn't really ask for a movie that was more diametrically opposed to Angels in the Outfield than Sin City. And it was perfect. I mean, he's sort of this junkie in dirty clothes, but he's kind of got this almost poetic, sad, self-talking soliloquy going on the whole time while he's setting my bones with popsicle sticks. And you're right. It's like, man, this is Doc Brown. Should be talking about 1.2 gigawatts of. But it's really cool because he's a really strong actor, and he can do a lot of different things, and applying that energy that he brings to a character like Doc Brown from Back to the Future, but putting it in this really dark flavor of a Frank Miller world is really entertaining.
Yeah, and I've been a huge fan of his ever since I saw him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, the guy's a great character actor. And sometimes a movie series that when it becomes popular can be a blessing and a curse, because you just become known for that. And people don't give you a chance after that because they just go, oh, that's Doc Brown. He's always going to be Doc Brown. And I was just such a fan of his. I'm a big proponent of someone who gets somebody and that you've always admired and given them a chance to do something else because they can redefine themselves. And he certainly walked in. I never mentioned that character. I never talked about the movie. I didn't even say I was a fan of it. I just wanted him to come in and do just this. And he comes in, and I think the first scene when he comes out and yells across the street, everyone just erupts in applause because he's got this magnetism and this presence that you could hear a pin drop, in the studio. People were just hanging on his every word. He's just that kind of an actor, and he doesn't get to do that enough, I think. So I think he enjoyed it, but that's why I just seen them together. It was quite a day. It was his first day. So you get to have two very cool collaborative scenes today. You're going to work with Christopher Lloyd in the morning and Lady Gaga in the evening. and he's this first day on this green screen, and he's there with Christopher Lloyd, and then he's with Lady Gaga. And it was
and by
a great day.
And by the way, before long, it's going to be Powers Booth. So, just grin and bear it.
And it was a blast. Everybody did so great.
Powers would fall in the same category. I mean,
huge fan of Powers Booth.
Oh.
That was someone I would quote all his lines from Extreme Prejudice to him all the time. Very much inspired the character of Moko and Maya Mariachi, the guy in the white suit. And getting to work with him on the first one, I said, there's not much for you to do in the first movie, but if we do a sequel, you're all over all the Sin City books. Yeah. And I was so glad he had come to do that one little scene in Sin City, because then he paid off for him here. He gets to he's the whole movie, and he enjoyed even what he was getting to do. He could really feel it, on the set. I mean, you have to feel it because there's nothing else to go off of. It's all green. It's only the actor, and when you're accomplishing it or not, because if you can make it work with just the camera and one actor or the two actors that they're with, then by the time all the other sauce is on, all the pretty pictures are on, it's going to really work. But it's got to work on that base level.
Jessica, at a press conference for the first Sin City, you had expressed trepidation about embodying Nancy's swagger. Were you more comfortable with it this time around since you were revisiting her?
Yeah.
Good memory.
Yes. Great memory. Yes, I was 21, I think, or 22. I was so young, and I wasn't really comfortable in my own skin, and being on a stage and dancing, it was all kind of terrifying to me. And being on set with, these meek individuals that don't have very strong opinions at all, I was terrified. I didn't want to make a misstep, and I knew how incredible this world was. And I just didn't want to disappoint them or myself. And in this one, I felt just more confident, and I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I feel like if I'm going to be, blessed with this career and be able to do movies, I might as well go 150% and really push it and be fearless. So that's kind of the attitude that I took this time around.
I know it's too early for this question, but sex is a big part of this story and the movie. And for Eva and Josh, knowing the amount of post-production that the scene was going to have later, black and white, special effects, 3D, knowing that affected something while you were shooting the scene?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I trusted Robert. He came to my trailer and he swore to me that I would look amazing with, the right lighting, the shadows and all that, because I felt, you always feel quite vulnerable when you're naked on a set, and so you trust, their vision, and it looks stunning. It's art, it's not vulgar, it's not indecent, it's not realistic. It's beautiful, I think. Yeah.
Josh? You apparently liked it very much, didn't you?
He was offended the first 4 times.
The first 4 times. Yeah, she says it's not sexy. She is sexy, and she trusted Robert. She did not trust me. And then
Nobody trusts you,
nobody
Josh.
trusts me. But when you do it, there's something about this cast that I've been very lucky, especially recently, this movie that I'm doing right now and that movie, where you just kind of jive immediately, and it makes it, there's not a lot of pretense on the set. And when you trust somebody as much as you trust these two, you're just like, I know I'm going to be taken care of, so I'm willing to go that much further. It may be a total manipulation, but it works. And when you see a movie like this and you see truly how beautiful it is, whether it's artistic or not, it's truly beautiful and it's truly unique. That's when, as an actor, that's like the best feeling in the world. You're like, look, this will go down. Whether people see it or not, we'll be able to look back on this and say, that was great. That was really great to be involved in.
Yeah, back row or second back?
My question is, Robert and Frank, I mean, even from the first Sin City, the way you lit the panels, like just like in the book, is that a long process where you like to get the lighting exactly like the panels in the book? It's beautiful.
The lighting takes time. When you're on the set, fortunately, we can move pretty quickly because I'm lighting just the actors. You're not having to light the entire set. You light them with the set in mind, and that's where the graphic novels are so great. You know already where your key is going to be, where there might be a backlight, and I know how to manipulate the images quite a bit. If I shoot it a certain way, I can add a lot of shadows later if I light it a certain way. I mean, I kind of figured that out in the first Sin City as well, but it's gotten even easier now, with technology, and it gives you a lot of freedom later to be able to play with all the lighting and get it right. So you're pretty much still lighting the set up until I was still lighting the set up until about 3 weeks ago. They're still doing the effects and adding, little pieces, subtracting, shadowing, still shading. Maybe 2 weeks ago, still adding shadows to cover things. I mean, it's quite a process. It's like drawing. It's like being an artist. You pencil it in first, and then you ink it. Well, when you're filming, it's kind of like you're penciling it all in. You know where everything's going to go, but the application of the final ink takes some time.
For Frank and Robert, for the two sequences that were new, that weren't graphic novels before, how did you go about developing it? Did you start with drawings or start with a straight-up script, and was it very different from how, Frank, you do the comics?
I think on the first film is when, after working with Jessica and really loving the relationship between Jessica and Bruce, that Frank was already talking about this new story that he was inspired to do, where following what happens afterwards. So we said, okay, well, that has to be one of the stories. And since that's kind of a cool idea that people can't just go buy a book and know what's going to happen, let's do another new story. And I, challenged him to come up with another character. And to make it easy, whenever he'd come down to Austin to visit, I would ask him about it. And I would secretly tape anything he said in case that was it. And he said, yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking about this character named Johnny, and he's got this coin, and he can't lose. And I was like, okay, here we go. And it was fun just to be there during the process of that, the writing of it, the crafting of it. And then a lot of it's still crafted. That's why I knew the ideal actor for it. I told him about this guy who I thought would be great, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who would bring an energy to the movie, and that he's very collaborative, he's very smart, he's very creative. That would be someone that he would help us kind of finish the working on it, finish the writing of it, because he would bring a lot to it. And that would, since he didn't have it drawn, he didn't really see the character in his head like his other ones. So rather than make a drawing he falls in love with and then try to find the actor, just get the actor and skip that process, skip that step, and go right to crafting it with the actor. And that's why Joseph was a really important casting to make that happen.
There was many a line I would come up with which had to do with just getting to know Joseph, because what he brought to the performance was a new and different kind of hero for Sin City, and so the script had to adapt. It often does.
Got time for a couple more? Hey.
Yeah, I felt like Marv was kind of the moral compass of this movie. How early did that sort of emerge as a through line for sort of all the stories?
Marv is a moral compass.
It's Sin City. He is considered the moral compass in that world.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on the story. But he really plays. It's funny, especially working with Mickey, but working with Marv is he tends to write himself, and he tends to have a very profound sense of right and wrong that's disguised by his slovenly and terrifying behavior.
So, like all of us. Hey there.
My question is for Jessica. So talking about costume, did you kind of put some of your idea to the costume what was the reaction of the costume? Someone show you and whoa, okay, it's some more like a covered, show more skins, or could you talk about the
Questions about the costume?
Yeah, Nina and I, it's who Robert has worked with for a long time, since forever, really. She's incredibly creative and so amazing. And I literally just like pulled together a bunch of things, and she pulled together a bunch of things, and we threw them all together on in a pile on the ground. And I had wigs, and I was trying things on, and it was like we figured it out together, and we created it together. And I really wanted each costume to reflect what was happening to Nancy emotionally at that point. So it made sense when you pick up her character in the end that she has that breakdown. And so that's sort of how we thought about the costumes and the looks and the dances and everything. And you guys just see just like a tiny little piece of it, but I think it was enough.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, all the costumes were represented. They're all great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Robert and Frank, I was wondering your collaboration, and maybe Frank also, you're seeing your movies, your work get adapted to the screen. Has it affected your art? And Robert, how do you think the collaborations affected your filmmaking?
Well, as far as how it's affected my artwork, it's probably made me more aware of character. Working with the kind of talent I've gotten to work with the cast of Sin City makes me think probably more fully dimensionally about what is going on behind their eyes. But I draw the way I draw, and ain't nothing would change that.
It is interesting, though. You said it would be hard to draw these characters again and have them not look like the actors now that they've taken over.
Oh yeah. I sit down and draw Marv, and I think, boy, I could throw a little Mickey in there. I mean, I don't think I'll do another dancing Nancy Callahan scene after seeing what Jessica does because she topped me.
You can take the Frank Miller out of Sin City, but you can't take the Sin City out of Frank Miller.
For me, I mean, I think I learn so much every time I work with somebody, and the actors, but especially this kind of a movie where the idea from the beginning was it's just the story. His visual storytelling was just so bold. When you read the book, you'd read the book and just be breathless and go, movies aren't like this at all. Let's not take this book and turn it into a movie. Let's take movies and turn it into the graphic novel. Let's do that instead. And people won't even know what they're looking at. It's still visual storytelling, but it's just approached completely different. And the two mediums don't have to be separate mediums. They could be one and the same, but people just have a block. And, oh, well, that's a graphic novel. That's totally different. Movies are this thing. If you flip that, what happens? And that affects everything you do after, because then you rethink everything that you do. You rethink why you make a movie a certain way. So it helps, I think, push you into more experimental ground for everything you do after that, to go and embark on that. And even I'm still learning. Everyone's so different. Every performance is different. How an actor works, you don't know. And I've worked with many fantastic actors, and they're all different. To judge performance, it's really difficult. You never really know. Like Eva was saying, her first scene was when had trouble with was when she was there with the cops, and she's emoting. I'm looking at it from the wide. We're shooting the wide first. I'm thinking, I keep telling her, I don't think they're gonna buy it. I think you're being over hysterical. I don't think I would buy it. I would know that you're lying. They're cops. And they go, well, let me move around to the close-up. So this looks like one thing, but then you come over here. And you see those eyes and how she's working him, and you're going, oh my God, they're falling for it big time. I would fall for it. I wouldn't care what she's saying at that point. She's using her eyes like a weapon, and you don't know. You got to be able to see you have to see the picture from all the angles you're going to use before you can really judge. So sometimes that taught me to, sometimes start with a close-up, the big no-no, because then you know if it's working instead of starting wide. That happened to me before with Mickey. I started with a wide and realized he's giving a close-up performance now. Drop the wide, let's move up close. And that was the whole scene, and it was magnetic. Sometimes that first instinct they have is better than anything you could approach to come up with yourself.
Well, Sin City 2, Dame to Kill For is a movie to kill for. So thanks, guys, for coming out. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.